Hey there, everybody. This is Kristin from Teaching Balance, and I'm here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. We are now in the month of self-advocacy, which takes all sorts of forms as we've been exploring. Last week we did a little bit of the myth debunking around how it can be misperceived when it comes to self-advocacy. And this week, I thought that it would be interesting for us to explore an element of self-advocacy with a form of inquiry. And so, as you probably can see, the title of this is More, and I think I might do less, just like without, I couldn't decide if I wanted to put an or between there, but now I'm not. So more, question mark, and less, question mark. And so I'll give you a very brief intro, and then we're just going to weave it right into the practice itself. So what I'm interested in exploring, and I'm inviting you to explore if you're interested, is thinking about the intangibles of life. So not necessarily physical objects, but the things that we might want more of and the things that we might want less of. And I say things, but again, I'm not necessarily talking about physical things. Like, of course, I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't mind more money, for example. That would be useful. But I'm looking for other types of things, the things that are more about what you want to invite into your life in terms of like experiences and, life habits, structure, how you spend your time, where you get your energy, that sort of thing. So I'll weave that in with a little bit more specificity when we get into it. And of course, the other element that I'm going to invite you to explore during our practice this week is the same question, but about less. So what are you interested in having less of? Now, if you are not feeling this, of course, you are more than welcome to just do your regular 10-minute sit. You could even mute this and just kind of keep an eye on the time. It's whatever you want to do. But I think it might be interesting for us to see what comes up if we pursue this line of internal inquiry. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And let's go ahead and just start in that traditional way with the gaze lowered or the eyes closed. And let's take those few deep, grounding belly breaths. And I'm sure you've noticed some days it's easier than others. If you're particularly adept at this, that's fantastic. But sometimes if we're feeling a little escalated or stressed, sometimes those deeper breaths feel a little more elusive. So I'm going to invite you to just do the best that you can in this moment and meet yourself where you are. And let's go ahead and just begin with the typical meditation of just allowing your awareness to rest on an anchor, on the breath or the body or sounds. And I'm going to actually just create a little bit of spaciousness for us for the first few minutes. So let's just sit in silence together, letting go of any expectations regarding the rest of the practice, and allow yourself just to settle, drop into your body, and to whatever degree it feels appropriate to you, just to relax in that state of presence. So let's do that together for a while. As you continue to settle in, I'll invite you to begin this idea of inquiry. To preface this guided visualization, I suppose you could say, I'm going to invite you just to be very curious and open to whatever might arise, even if it's not necessarily what you might have consciously anticipated or expected. And of course, you might find that everything unfolds as you expected it to, and that's fine too. But we're just going to be curious, open, and interested in what comes up. So to begin, our first line of inquiry that I'd like for you to ask of yourself, perhaps you could describe it as your subconscious or your inner wisdom. When you think of those intangibles, not physical objects, as I mentioned, or possessions, but more ways of being, habits, experiences, what would it serve you to have more of in your life? You can have my question, my wording be the question itself, or you can also repeat the question in your own inner voice. What would I like to invite in more of in my life? Remembering there's no right or wrong answer. Just holding that question in your awareness. And if you've already had some perhaps visualization, some images in your mind, or perhaps even a verbal response of some kind, an answer to your inquiry, giving yourself a moment more just to see if there's anything else. And then just for the purpose of recalling, getting clear on what that answer was for you. What were the things that you'd like to invite in more of in your life? Make yourself a brief list based on your experience there. And as you can imagine, the next line of inquiry that I'm going to invite you to explore is asking yourself, your subconscious, your inner wisdom, whatever you want to conceptualize it as, what would I like to have less of in my life? What would I like to have less of? Noticing with that curiosity, openness, and interest, what images came to mind. It might almost even feel like you're getting lost in thought, but what did you think about? What came to mind, and could that be a potential response? Or did you actually, in your inner experience, hear an answer. Giving yourself another moment just to leave room for any final response regarding what would you like to have less of in your life. And allowing yourself just to, as we did earlier, make that brief list so that you can retain it. And allowing yourself just to hold that in your awareness until you hear the bell. So, I'm hoping that, excuse me, something was there for you, either for both elements, the more and the less, or perhaps more so one than the other. Also, if you weren't just quite feeling this one right now, I would encourage you to consider just kind of like leaving it for the email, leaving it unchecked if you want to circle back to this and try it another time. Or, of course, you can just do this on your own independently with any kind of timer. Self-inquiry is really interesting. I've been doing some deeper dive types of things with that in the past several months. And I think it's always really rich when it's experienced in this kind of framework of almost like a formal asking and listening or waiting for and receiving whatever that reply might be from some element of ourselves. My final thought to part with you is if, while it's fresh and some things came up for you, if you've got a piece of paper handy, it doesn't have to be a big, fancy, involved, journal prompt or anything like that, although you could certainly do that if you're into it. But I would just jot it down, even if it's on a scrap of paper. What came up for you under more? What came up for you under less? And of course, the big question in alignment with this concept of self-advocacy is that if this need has arisen, if you've received the answer, what are some small steps that you can begin to take to move toward the lessening of what you'd like to lessen and the increasing of what you'd like to have more of? And, again, it doesn't have to be big dramatic shifts. What are some small steps that you can do? And, I believe just getting clear on it is usually a very powerful first step as well. So, happy Self-Advocacy Month. As always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself, and thank you for allowing me to accompany you on this journey. I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.